Yeah, yeah.
I
Sorry.
Welcome to the special episode of Iowa Girls Wrestling Podcast. I have filmmaker and friend Clayton Van Horn. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Great.
And
Good to hear from you, Troy.
yes, how was the holiday?
It was good. Spent some time in Des Moines, at my wife's parents' house, and then immediately on Christmas Day, woke up, opened presents from Santa Claus, and then went to Crete, where I'm from, to be with my parents, and spent a couple days there, and came home, went and coached some wrestling.
Very nice. Did you
So
get to coach your
yeah,
sister
I
all over the
get
break?
Yeah, actually, she wrestled a Fargo 16 and under Fargo state medalist and beat her, which is a good
Nice.
highlight of the end of break. But yeah, it was I have two younger siblings, one boy, one girl, Ruby and Lyle. Ruby wrestles, she's a senior, and she started wrestling about 2.5 years ago, so this is her third season. And my younger brother Lyle is a sophomore at Crete, and he has wrestled since he was in kindergarten. So it's kind of fun. But yeah, no, I got to watch some of her wrestling, which is kind of a treat since she's a senior. I don't get to I don't know how many more times I'm gonna get to see her
Yeah.
wrestle. Hopefully she'll make it to state and I get to watch her while I'm coaching my team, which is kind of a nice little benefit. I oftentimes get to see my younger siblings at our wrestling tournaments when I'm supposed to be coaching my own team. I get to
Yeah.
kind of look off onto the other mats.
Yeah,
But
it's fun. I get to see the only time I see my brother is at girls wrestling meets too, because he coaches for another team. So that's the only time we ever talk and stuff. So
right,
it's
yeah,
cool. So
yeah.
I understand exactly where you're at. Well, I
My
want to
wife
jump
actually,
right in. Oh, well, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, my wife commented that when we went home for whatever, the only thing my family talked about was wrestling, which is probably accurate.
Yeah.
Because it's when it's during the season, we're talking about my high school team at Ralston, and then my siblings' teams, and then if we're not talking about that, we're talking about unfortunately not talking about Nebraska D1 wrestling, which had unfortunate situation with you and I recently.
Or maybe a fortunate situation, however you look at it, from my standpoint.
Depending on who you are, probably for your audience, a very fortunate situation.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm excited for the Panther train and stuff. So, but I wanted to jump right in. It's been a few years, since we first met. But you did your first experience with girls wrestling. You did a hype video for myself and Jason Shepard for the Ridgeview girls. The first year when Izzy and Tatum and Dardania and Jolynn were all freshmen. So what was your first experience and how was your first experience with girls wrestling?
Yeah, it was interesting because it was one of those where Shepard sent me an email because he was my professor. So he sent me an email, said, we have this wrestling team. Our situation is this. We are really good. We just don't have the numbers to compete with these bigger schools out east when it comes to the big that was IWCOA tournament at the
Yep.
time. Um, and I was like, okay, cool. And I had already been making a bunch of videos for my college's wrestling team. I did them all for free. So the idea that he would pay me was pretty interesting. Plus, if you went to my school, you'd understand that Jason Shepard's like the coolest professor ever. And
Oh
so
yeah.
the idea of hanging out with him outside of class was, I liked that idea. And so, um, I remember going in thinking like, I knew girls wrestling was a thing, but I didn't know it was a, I just still after today I didn't know it was a big thing, but I didn't understand it was a big enough thing that they had their own tournaments. I just kind of thought some girls wrestle and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I went there and recorded it and didn't realize that like well I knew they were pretty good, but I didn't realize we were gonna have like Jolyn hitting Japanese whizzers on people and arm spins and head
And
throws, and then Itzy's big what was it, Kentucky surfboard
yeah, she
that she
surfboarded
was
the
so proud
girl.
of for a few
Yep.
years. A few times she would hit it and be like, "Hey, remember when I did that when I was a freshman? You made that video." And I was like, "Yes." I don't think I'll ever forget it because that was
Yeah.
the first time I saw that move. But it was just one of those things that I was like kind of a jaw drop moment and thought, well, this is quite different than what I was used to because I started wrestling in first grade. And so I've been around the sport forever. I've never seen something like this before. And
Yeah.
then the problem was I thought that that meant these were the only super impressive girl wrestlers in the entire world or at this high school, and because they didn't have any competition really at that meet. And so that
Yeah.
was a kind of an issue for me to overcome because I just assumed, well, Shepard, Izzy, and Jolynn are all going to win state next year because look how they wrestled at this one. My sample size was too small, I guess is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And I think Jason even told them, "Hey, you guys, you got to do like two or three takedowns before you pin somebody because he's only got this one tournament to get footage from. So you got to do cool stuff." So
Yeah,
they
I
had that in their
remember.
head.
Yeah, he had Tatum cut someone about 10 times and take her down. And he came up to me after the match and said, "Yeah, like I tried to get her to take her down a lot. I felt like at that point, I told her to pin her because I thought at that point it's just enough takedowns that we don't look like jerks, but we
Yep.
can get a lot of footage from it."
Yeah, that's quite funny. So that video was awesome. I still pull it up every once in a while because it's pretty cool to watch watch where we started and where we're at now. But then I was actually on a trip with AAU down in Florida, and I get a message from Jason Shepard saying, "Hey, Clayton wants to, he's got an idea to do a capstone, or he's got to do a capstone project, and he wants to do it on girls wrestling. Is it all right if he comes into the wrestling room every once in a while or do whatever?" And I was like, "That sounds fantastic to me. The more publicity for it, the better." So, what was your idea? And then let's talk about how it evolved throughout the year.
Yeah, the idea was if I followed you guys an entire season, you had enough talent in that wrestling room that something would happen that was really good. You know, whether that was a placing at state or state champion or just kind of a team type of thing. You guys had a good culture and you had a good talent in the room that if I followed you for a whole year, I would be able to kind of dissect all the footage and create a story, you know, or something like that. Um, Now, you ended up getting a state champion that year, but even if you didn't, it would have been a
Yep.
great story anyway. But yeah, it was just one of those things that I started following you. I figured if I just film everything, which was a little excessive, I had about terrible. You have the hard drive, but
Yeah,
I
I have the
had
hard
terrible
drive.
footage by the end of it, and it's organized by date only. And so, um, yeah, it was just one of those things. Like I have towards the end of the year, I think I have like the last like 20 practices, just footage on my cell phone.
Uh-huh.
Of all of them. But yeah, the idea was uh, something, you'll get a state champion, you'll get a state medalist or whatever. Somebody will improve or something like that and have kind of a moment where they gain their confidence. And if I record enough, I'll be able to capture it.
Yep.
And that was for my school project. But I just remember I called Shepard. I said, all right, texted him, said, can I call you at some point? I have an idea for my capstone. It involves you if you're in, you know. And he said, yeah, call me anytime. So I called him over my lunch break. I was interning with a baseball team in North Dakota at the time.
Yep.
And so over my lunch break, I called him, told him the idea. He loved it. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna loop in a couple of my professors because you run this by Troy and see if he likes the idea. And it turns out you did, so I'm glad.
Yep.
But it was just one of those things that there was so much uncertainty before I started it that I was certain something would happen, but I didn't know. And I actually remember having like waking up in a cold sweat, being like, "Did I miss something? you know, and like so much regret. I remember when Jolynn pins that boy. It was during the episode about the dog mentality.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was an episode about that at this time. I was just filming, but when Jolynn pinned that guy, and then everybody, the entire team basically runs into the locker room. I was busy recording something else, like getting footage for like cutaways and stuff. And I had no idea everybody's in the locker room freaking out, like probably had Joe lit up on their shoulders, like, because she just won like a walk-off pin to win the duel.
Yeah.
And I was kicking myself for months after that. And there was numerous examples of that, but it was just such an uncertain situation, I guess.
So, I know I just, I told you I did a couple podcasts with Tatum and Izzy, and that's what sparked this whole idea of getting a hold of you. And we'll get into the idea later. But Tatum, said that there was one time that you were following them down the hallway and they were going to the bathroom and you almost walked into the girls' bathroom because you weren't even paying attention to what was going on.
Yeah, well, that's because like at that point, that was like in January. I was it was Danny. I was like following her after she lost a match, and she was like, "What? Stop following me!" And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I get it because she's lost.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to lose a match and get pinned, and then have a bunch of cameras in your. She was actually winning the match when she got pinned, I think, and have a bunch
Uh-huh.
of cameras in your face like that. Would be annoying. And then I was like, okay, well, like I'll catch you later. And she was like, well, I'm going to the bathroom. I was like, wait, what the? Yeah, that would have been bad. That would have been bad if I would have followed her.
Follow her into the
It was a
bathroom with the
couple of
camera.
turns away. I'm sure I would have. I'm sure I would have caught on before. Like I wouldn't have found myself just like in the, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was a
So,
couple of, I was still far away, but it was just one of those situations that I was so locked in that when like I don't know. At the state tournament, I bumped into people all the time because I was looking through
uh-huh.
my camera and I would just whatever. There was a situation where I was recording Izzy before her finals match, and Clarissa Chun was the Iowa head coach for Iowa's wrestling team.
Yep.
Was like standing there because I was recording, and she was like waiting for me to be done recording. She didn't realize that I was recording everything, and
Uh-huh.
so I didn't realize she was standing there, and I didn't even realize who it was because Izzy just goes, "You can walk past him," and then she'd walk past me, and I was like, "Oh, like I'm like holding up traffic, I guess." But
But it
I
doesn't
had to,
matter.
yeah, it was when I was going back through the footage. I was like, "Hang on, who is
That's
that?" Like
wait,
I've seen
that's
her
Clarissa Chung.
before. Turns out she's like a girls wrestling celebrity, and I didn't even know it because I was so like I was watching Izzy warm up.
Yep. That's funny. So throughout the process, was there a point in time or did you start to see when everybody decided the cameras weren't there anymore and it just became normal? Because I
Yeah,
know it was a
yeah, there
little
was.
nerve-wracking at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I actually what I noticed was like during the first week of practice, it would be like the camera turns, and then like some people who weren't really drilling that hard or practicing very hard would all of a sudden practice like they were the state champions.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't any girls actually, it was all the boys. The boys would like completely shift their practice mentality when the camera turned. But yeah, it was interesting. Some people like just kind of like Izzy started ignoring me like maybe 2 weeks in, but Jolyn didn't start. I don't think Jolyn ever stopped ignoring me.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it just instead of her getting nervous, she started acting more like Jolyn when
Uh-huh.
like a more saturated version of her character that she already was.
Yeah, she's
Um,
quite the character.
yeah, no, I'll never forget when she like turned, saw me recording her, and then takes an iPad that you guys used to record matches and started taking pictures of some guy's butt on it,
Yeah, I know
and then put it
that's
back on the
very
tripod.
Jolene.
Yeah, put
Yep.
it back on the tripod. So whoever's uploading that to Huddle or whatever, um,
That's awesome.
but
That's such, I mean, it's almost funny because I mean, if you couldn't write something like that in a script, but
no,
it worked out really well because Jolene, yeah, that's a character. And you had some good characters and had good character development, really. I mean,
yeah,
Izzy's story is fantastic throughout that. Tatum's, struggle mentally, Jolene just being crazy. Danny, Danny coming on at the end there. That's, all kinds of crazy things happened. It was pretty cool. I know I
Yeah.
did, I don't know how many freaking hours worth of interviews with you and stuff. So,
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I can't imagine how much footage I can because I have the hard drive. I've tried to look through it and there's a ton of it there.
Yeah,
So putting
yeah.
that, no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but it was
Oh, no.
interesting because I thought I got like a 40-minute long interview with you at the beginning of the year before
Uh-huh.
it was during one of the open mats. And I remember thinking like, oh, I got a 40-minute long interview. This is gold. Because I'd never the longest interview I've ever shot was like 6 minutes, and it
Uh-huh.
was about something I don't care about, like basketball. And so I had this like 42-minute interview. I was like, hell yeah, this is gonna be good. And I was like, I thought I was good for like the whole, probably until like maybe the end of the year. And then it turns out I needed like three more interviews from you, and
Yeah.
all of them were
Just, yeah.
all longer than an hour.
Yep. It's crazy how much
There
time.
was
I mean,
one I had, yeah, I
oh,
had
you're
one with
fine.
Shepard. I had one with Shepard that was so long that his wife texted him and was like, "Where the hell are you?"
I believe that.
I
Because we
don't
just
blame
start
her.
talking. Yeah, we just start talking
It
and
was on
and we
his birthday
it's
too.
yeah, good stuff to talk about. I love talking about wrestling. I can talk about it all day long. But when you went to put that
Same.
together, how hard was it to come up with? I mean, you had to have episode ideas, and then you had to go through the footage to find the episode, everything. How long did it take? Because the episodes are that 22-ish minute long, except for the final one, right? So, how long did it
Well,
take to edit one
yeah,
video?
I think the last, yeah. So episode 5 was like 30 minutes. Episode 6 was 40 minutes,
Yeah.
which makes the last two episodes, which is about the state tournament, like an hour and 10 minutes, which is ridiculous. But yeah, no, it was hard to kind of decide what the episodes were going to be. It did help that I spent the entire time shooting thinking about this project nonstop and having to decide the biggest deciding thing, the biggest thing to have to I guess weigh my options was where to start the sixth episode,
Hmm.
whether I should start it on day 2 of the tournament or if it should start on a specific, like maybe right after Tatum loses. But I'm like, well, the fifth episode has to end on a note. And it doesn't have to be a high note. It could be like
Uh-huh.
a not. It could be like a bad thing that happened. I was thinking about like right after Izzy, like they iced the thing, and she's like, "My elbow fucking hurts
Uh-huh.
to take," and I had to take the F word out, but which wasn't too much of an issue with this. There's only one culprit, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, there was just a lot of moments in the state tournament, and I didn't know when to end that or whatever. But the first episode being kind of like a introduction um, to girls, not only girls wrestling, because the point of this whole project was to be for someone who's never even seen wrestling before. So you didn't have I was very intent about like you didn't have to know how the points work. You didn't have to really understand anything about wrestling. We're going to take you through what a practice looks like and make you understand what good position is because I'm never going to show, when we're talking about good wrestlers or whatever, if it's like Tatum's introduction, I'm never going to show her in bad positions. So that way, like, you can kind of subconsciously understand what good position is
Uh-huh.
because we're talking about how badass she is. So she's never going to be like on her hip or on her knees when she's not supposed to be. You know what I mean? That sort of situation. But so episode 1 was really easy. I was like, I'm just going to intro it and then introduce a couple of themes, which by the way, I don't know if you realize this. I realized on like my fifth rewatch, and I'm going to pretend like it's on purpose. Every episode has like every theme of every episode after episode 1 is in episode 1.
Is it really?
Like there's the, yeah, so it's like the family aspect, there's the um yeah, it all comes in episode 1, and which I forget, I can't think of specific examples because it's been a couple of years, but yeah, but no, it was pretty easy. The big challenge was 5 and 6 is how am I going to split these up, you know? But I think what we decided to do with that, where I had Danny winning, and that was the end of the episode. I think that was the way to do it.
Yeah, I think that was good because that was a pretty high moment and that was a pretty cool moment to have someone who really just started wrestling win how she did at state.
Mhm.
You know, and not that she placed, but she won matches where we never thought she would, and it was great to see the her evolution throughout that and stuff. So the whole thing was just awesome, you know. And so you get this all done and stuff, and Tony puts it on Rockfin, and I, you know, I've heard a bunch of people, heard a lot of comments back that next year, you know, hey, I watched the videos, I saw you in the videos and all this stuff. I don't know how much feedback you got, but you did win some awards for this. And actually, we'll start with this. The night that the capstones were done at BV and all the wrestlers came and just a really cool thing to watch the film. But I bet every BV student for the next 10 years is not real happy with you because I think you broke the curve on what's required of a capstone project now. So what's your thoughts on the whole
That
viewing
is
and
what
showing?
I keep well, I keep getting mean emails every year when the projects are due. People are like, "You blank blank now," but I was told the next year that the expectations were different, and so here's what's crazy is I'm sorry, but
No, you're
what's
fine.
crazy is my entire college career, I've been the same major. And so when I was a freshman, people had their capstone projects, and I guess maybe I didn't hear any feedback about that project from any students, only the professors. So they were basically like, "Oh, well, you work on this for an entire year, all year long, you're working on this." And so I was like, "Oh, that sounds like pretty stressful, you know?" And it turns out like most people don't work on it all year. Most they work on it for like a month, or they do
Uh-huh.
something where they're like, "Well, I'm working on it for a month," but then they really just kind of whatever. Um, you know, if you were
And
in
you
college, you
true,
understand
yeah.
what I'm
No,
talking
I
about.
understand. I understand
but but
completely because I would do everything last minute myself. So
right, yeah. So the only reason I didn't do that, that's what I did with everything in college. But the only reason I didn't do that is because how I really enjoyed this project. But in terms of like the people's reception towards it, or uh, people really seemed to like it. You know, what was
yeah.
I was kind of scared. I knew people who didn't have never heard of Ridgeview. I knew they would like it, but I was kind of scared of some of the like I didn't know would Izzy's parents enjoy it, you know, like or
Uh-huh.
like would you enjoy it? I didn't even know if you were gonna like it. And so that was I was really nervous about that, is I wanted the people in it who I spent all this time with to not be like, hey, remember that mean person who made that film about us and it was terrible?
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know, like
No. No.
I was
What
really scared of
one of the things I talked to Tatum about in our interview was, you know, you became, you know, I know you were supposed to be fly on the wall and just filming everything, and you weren't there. You weren't there, but. I have a trouble doing that, and I even had you like helping practice every once in a while. And you're like, I knew you were reluctant to do it because you're supposed to be filming. And I'm like, no, come here, let me show this on you quick
yeah,
and stuff. And
you used me as a dummy to show Izzy a leg race before she went to France.
yeah, and you know things like that, and just you know you ended up becoming basically part of the team and traveling with the team, and you know it was no big deal to you know Clay. Oh, it's just Clayton. I mean, he even got in an argument with opposing coaches, you know. So that
Yeah, I
was
did.
if that footage is on there, I might throw that up on a clip or something because that was fun.
That was crazy. Yeah, I got in a fight with the people from the bad guys from Home Alone,
Yeah,
or at least that's what they
and
looked like. I don't know.
you know, and now I'm coaching that school in our co-op.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, they're in our co-op and stuff. So that's kind of fun. I'm
Well,
so
good for
happy I'm not
them.
a boy. I'm so happy I'm not a boys coach anymore. I really enjoy
Oh,
the girls thing and our co-op is fun. We actually don't even practice in that wrestling room anymore. We go to
how
Galva,
is
which is
it?
the next town down.
Gotcha.
I'm in an
Yep.
old gym and we roll out two mats. So I have double the wrestling room that the boys have. And We have not had any
That
skin problems because it's not a hot area. We clean the mats every day. It's not a dungeon with that has probably 10 years of mold underneath of it. No, so it's a nice it's a good practice
so
facility.
it's not a regular, it's not a basic wrestling room.
Yeah, no, it's not. And we use the basketball hoops that are up. We That's how we warm up sometimes. And I had a girl that just started a week or so, or that she started the week before break, and she was a basketball player. I've had, I think, four basketball players now convert, like in like three last year, junior year, and this is a sophomore, mid-season quit and came to wrestling. And
Good.
so I give them a
That,
basketball and have them play. Like we've been playing 10 on 10, but I make the rules two dribbles is it. But it proves to
mm,
them that there's no way they're going to basketball because they are so bad at basketball. It's some of the worst basketball you will ever see in your lifetime. So I do it just to make sure that they know that they can't switch sports and stuff.
that's
So
awesome.
from the very beginning, your thoughts on girls wrestling to now that you're coaching a high school girls wrestling team and had coached middle school girls last year, what has changed in your thought process about girls wrestling?
I don't know. I guess I'm definitely more used to it, and not that I needed to get used to it. It was when I first walked into that gym to record your team. It was I just kind of walked in. I was like, oh, like I guess I don't know what I was expecting, but it's girls in singlets with headgear on wrestling each other. It was strange to see. I don't know. It's kind of I don't know. It was strange at first. It's not strange
Uh-huh.
now, obviously, but it's I don't know. It's
What,
hard
how
to
about this?
articulate.
How about
Yeah.
this? What about and even watching your sister now, because your sister started wrestling during this project, if I remember right.
Yes.
What about the difference in the level of wrestling that you watched the very first year to where the level of girls wrestling is both in Iowa and Nebraska right now?
Yeah, it's completely changed. In fact, I would go as far as to say that if you're a girl wrestler, you need to start before you're in high school if you want to have a level of his success. It used to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've been around it much longer, but it used to be if you started your freshman year, by your senior year, you could be a state medalist if you work hard.
Yep. Yep.
And that's still true. That's still true. But, you can't confidently tell someone, if you work hard, you're going to be a state medalist. If you're a freshman and you just start, or now it's just starting, it's the range of competition is growing,
Hmm.
and it's always the range of competition. The range of levels of competition have always been pretty wide for girls, um, especially before there was a varsity kind of lineup for girls. They were at JV meets, and you could see anybody really. But it's gotten to the point where you kind of got to do that thing typical wrestling families do, where you start your kid at first grade, because I have no doubt that in 5 years, the only state medalists are going to be people who started when they're in fifth or sixth grade.
That could very well be true. Yeah, and it's really cool. And I don't know how big your team is, but I actually have people competing for varsity spots now. I
Yeah,
have
that's actually terrific
You know,
too.
we have JV people, and we've been very fortunate. I've had some girls start late that have been incredible athletes, and they're getting a lot of wins and stuff. And it's much harder to qualify in the state of Iowa now. We're two classes, but we only qualify two per weight. And I have some weights that at our regional we have three ranked people in the weight. At 100,
What?
yeah, yeah. So that's at a regional. So there's a possibility of people that were at state tournament last year not making it back to the state tournament because the level has risen that much in 1 year.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's and Nebraska went to two classes also. So
they
we'll see
did. Yeah,
how that
we'll
goes.
see how it goes. I think it's such a fun sport for girls.
Hmm.
Not so fun for boys. It's kind of the worst sport for boys. It is fun and people love it, but it's man, it's such a grind. But for girls, it seems like there's enough positive energy and enough just well, positive energy. There's just enough of a positive that it's worth it. It's
Yep.
nobody's really focused on the cutting weight. And I don't know if you pressure people to cut. Nobody pressures people, but if you
Yeah.
encourage cutting weight,
No.
um, yeah, I'm
No,
not. Yeah,
I don't. There, I mean,
yeah,
you were in our room. There's not, I just don't encourage it because I spent my senior year cutting weight and not getting better. And that's
yeah.
something I learned a lot from is that, I would rather see someone naturally, 5 pounds. I get that. That's about the max that we go in our room really is a 5 pound difference,
Yeah, and the amount
so
of weight loss that you'll just have naturally from wrestling practice because it's
yep.
practices are not easy, and so you'll lose weight, but you don't have a disgustingly hot wrestling room either. So
No,
cutting
no.
weight would be much harder than it would be
It's
like our wrestling room. You walk in, you hit a wall of humidity.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. There's people.
Yeah.
We've got guys with like their our shirt, it looked like they just jumped into a swimming pool, and we gotta like clean off the mats before we wrestle live because people will slip. It's
Yep.
the point where people like we taught a fireman carry, and we don't have anybody doing fireman carries because when you try to do it in practice, your hand slips down their arm when you try
Uh-huh.
to dump. And so we don't have any like nobody does that because it doesn't work in practice. And so yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, I just think back to the point, girls wrestling is much more fun in terms of what the community and the attitude around the sport. And I also just think girls naturally hate basketball. I don't know what it is, but I've never met a girl who likes basketball. And so your point about people quitting basketball and joining wrestling is not surprising to me at all. And so I just think like right now where girls wrestling is in a spot where everyone is it's a breath of fresh air because it's new.
Hmm.
And what they're doing is impressive inherently because they're stepping on the mat. They're some of the first generation to ever do that. And it's just a lot of fun. And so the numbers I think they're just going to grow exponentially like they have been. How many people took the hydration test this year for Iowa?
I I haven't heard the Iowa numbers yet. Last year was 3,500. I think they were the fourth highest in the country behind Texas, Washington, and California. You know.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
see,
our
I
our
remember.
yeah, our AAU numbers are close to 3,000 girls in AAU and about 1,000 in USA wrestling. So
Wow.
it's just a insane amount, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like a tournament you should get involved in, Twin River Duels. You should form a team and bring it to us. It's last few years it's been with the boys. This year it's gonna be standalone and we're expecting 100 teams, so
What?
and yeah,
How
that'll
did a
be
tournament
it's
like how could you run a tournament like that with 100 teams?
30 mats.
Well, I
It's
guess
it's it's a
I
it's dual
guess
teams.
that'll
It's a dual team tournament. So you get about 10 duels in 2 days. And
wow.
it's four divisions because we do a developmental division as far as an all-star division also and stuff. So it's crazy
Is
that
that the one where you brought like you and Dave Storm brought like three
nope.
teams?
That would be the Mata Dreams. This is the one
Gotcha.
this is the one at the end of the year the AAU does, and it's insane. It's crazy big.
I might
Um,
have to do that at some point.
Yeah, I could get you in touch with those Nebraska AAU people. They would love to have some extra help. I know they would. So
Okay.
I'll send you that number and I'll make sure that
Okay.
they get a hold of you and stuff. So,
Perfect. Sounds
um,
good.
let's see what you're doing now. What's after all this BV education, all that money is spent and stuff. What's going on now in your life?
I am homeless on the streets. Right now, I live in
Panhandling for money.
right. Yeah. Coaching random people on the streets how to do stance in motion and double leg takedowns. No, I'm working for a AAA baseball team, the Omaha Storm Chasers, they're the AAA affiliate of the Kansas City Royals.
Yep.
Doing video work. I'm the video coordinator there. And then because it's a baseball team and there's not a whole lot going on in the off season, I still work in the off season. But I get off work at like 4:30, so I'm able to go and coach wrestling for Ralston High School, which is a ton of fun. We have a great head coach. It's a culture that I really think is positive. It's like I was saying earlier, wrestling is such a grind that a positive environment is really important to me. And so it's a good environment, really great community, good parents, which is important to me too.
Yep.
But yeah, I volunteer coach there, and so they run their boys and girls together because they have so many kids ride the bus, and so it's a boys and a girls practice every day. They're just on two different sides. We have two mats.
Yep.
There's boys mat and girls mat, and then yeah, it's a lot of fun. Double the tournaments as a regular team though, because there's boys
Yeah.
and girls. We try to get them. The ones that are together are the best. That's another thing we should talk about. My hometown tournament usually had three mats and then like a fourth mat somewhere in the dark corner with spider webs and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, had eight mats at their last tournament or six mats at their last tournament. And I just feel like that's a lot. I don't know if Iowa does it, but the way Nebraska, they don't have two different athletic unions.
Yeah.
So the Crete tournament has boys and girls, and it is it's pretty wild.
Yeah. We
But
we
is
are
that the
all
case?
separate, completely separate.
Okay.
Most of our tournaments, like the Ridgeview home tournament, is 25 teams, three mats. It's
Okay.
usually a pretty solid. It's all of Northwest Iowa is basically what it is. And
Gotcha.
it's pretty awesome. Most of them are that way. We go to Ogden this weekend, which is the original tournament for girls wrestling in the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
They had 11 girls, what, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was, and now it is turned into approximately 30 teams, both JV and varsity, two separate gyms and stuff. So
Wow.
it is tough. It is a tough tournament. There's some of the top teams from both East and West and Central Iowa are all there. So it's one of
That's
the
awesome.
I'll always go to it because I was at the very first girls tournament ever, and I will continue to be at that tournament, probably even as an old guy watching and stuff. It's probably one of those that I'll go to.
Yeah, it was actually the Ogden tournament. I remember they said they before they did the national anthem, they announced that like there's 11 people, and then this year we have whatever something 100 wrestlers, and
Yeah.
it was a kind of a big deal. Everyone clapped, and it was a cool moment. And then I remember going back through that first interview. He said, like, I remember being at Ogden, there was 11 people there. And I was like, oh, hey, cool. I didn't even realize because when you're not from Iowa, talking about towns in Iowa, they all blur together
Yeah.
in my mind. And so hearing that, I was like, oh, I didn't even realize you had mentioned that. That's kind of a big deal. I can't believe I glossed over that. I
Hmm.
had some guy at the tournament had to like be like, hey, dummy, like, uh,
This is that tournament that had 11 people at it. Yeah.
yeah, this is kind of an important fact about the place that you are right now. But yeah, it is cool.
What are the plans for the future? Are you thinking about, are we gonna is there room to move up and be in Kansas City?
So yeah, so I've always thought the way that it should work is every employee for a Kansas City affiliate should be called up as if they were a player. They should be
Yes.
like, the videos from the Storm Chasers have been killing it. We got to call up their video guy. That's how I think it should work, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it doesn't work like
That's
that.
not how it works.
Uh, yeah, I think every job should be like that. But anyway, uh, no, I'm pretty happy where I'm at, and I just
Nice.
got married, so we're gonna stick around for a while. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. She's super smart and has a really good job too, and so we may move if she gets a better job or whatever. Um, but yeah, it's
Well,
yeah, I like what's up.
Omaha's great. Omaha is a great community. I mean, there's just a
Yeah,
lot to do in Omaha. The Omaha Metro is pretty awesome, especially out west where you're hanging out.
yeah,
It's
it's nice. I like it. I like the team that I'm at. I don't want to be. the guy who moves like 30 minutes away, and then the team I coach for another team, and then I'm the guy who betrayed my original team, you know.
Yeah, nope, I hear you because I live in a different school district than I coach, and there's many times I'm like out on that drive home, I'm thinking, God, it'd be so easy to have been at practice and home by now, but I can't do it. I
Mhm.
can't do it. You have too many ties with
Couldn't.
the team,
Yeah,
so
yeah, and you get close with the parents, and
oh
then
yeah.
you get close with the parents, and then some parents you're not close with, but they tolerate you, which is good. And yeah, it's I don't know. I'm in a good spot. And like I said, I just got married this last July. So
So
not looking to kind of
you're
uproot my life. I am very happy where I'm at.
very nice.
I wouldn't go as far to say my life is perfect, but I would say it's more perfect than anyone else who's ever existed. It's
Oh,
pretty
very
good.
good. That's pretty good. All right, I'm going to give you some of the same questions that I ask the girls at the end of every one of these podcasts, and they're
Okay.
not even necessarily always wrestling related. But so if we're going to get a pet, are you getting a dog or a cat?
Oh God. Oh
Or is there
no.
another animal that you want? Is there a spider monkey
Oh,
or I mean,
well, I've always wanted a pet rabbit, but because I feel like they'd be easy. Their poop doesn't smell that bad. It's, they're easy to deal with. You don't have to feed them that much.
it's
The
it's a
issue is
good option.
they either have to be morbidly obese or they'll run away. That's kind of the dichotomy there. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. Dogs, I've had negative experiences with dogs just because they annoy the crap out of me every time someone walks past your house and they're barking. Um, okay, between dog and cat, dog, hands down,
Okay.
not even close.
All right,
And I've had
good.
good experiences with dogs too, but I've never really. I guess my parents have a cat named Optimus, and it bites people.
And it's evil.
So
Cats, see, cats are evil.
right.
I thought I was gonna have to rethink my friendship with you, but that's all right. So, I'm sure you took a wonderful honeymoon, but you're gonna take the wife on vacation. Are we looking at a
Yes.
beach? Are we looking at a mountains? Are we looking at where's the dream vacation for the Van Horns?
Oh, so she really likes beaches.
I,
Her family goes to St. George, Florida, quite often, and it's like probably her favorite place in the world. So, and I haven't been there, and so that would be the dream vacation. But she's talked about she really likes Maine. You can tell I really don't care where I go on
yeah,
vacation. I just
yeah,
want her to like it. But
yeah.
we've talked about like going to like Maine or something somewhere in the Northeast, but still a beach. So I think the perfect spot on paper is like Cape Cod, and I've been there and it's pretty cool. And so
Yeah,
probably
I have.
Cape Cod.
That's an area I have not gone. I will concur with the beaches of Florida. I go to Florida at least twice a year now and it's all
Oh
wrestling
yeah,
involved, all wrestling involved. So I don't, I still get to have fun, but so
yeah. I'd
I
probably
think
say yeah.
you're fine.
I'd probably say Florida during like November, yeah, like wintry time, Florida, so
Yep.
it's still kind of nice. I wouldn't want to be in Florida in like July. That would
I,
be
I've been there in
hot.
June and then October, and October is fantastic.
Okay, good.
So
I'm glad. Okay, good to hear.
yeah, and it's not that bad. It's not much different than Iowa, Nebraska summer because it's hot and
Mhm.
humid here, especially when the corn gets, God, it's
Oh,
it's stupid humid here. Um,
mhm.
what genre of music is your favorite genre of music?
Oh man, it's not a real genre, but I
It's
like lifting music.
just like that. So
Yeah,
here's
something
where I
that
take
makes
this
me.
question. I take this question with the girls every time. So we're going out to win a state title. What music is in the beats?
Oh, I don't know. Probably take your average, like if you're gonna max out on squat, that, something like Metallica or some kind of modern hard rock, whatever. I don't really listen to music outside of when I'm working out. And
Gotcha.
so I'm always like, whenever people ask me questions about music, I always feel kind of lame because I'll say like 3 days grace, and they're like, "Are you okay? Like, you have a good relationship with your parents?" And I'm like, "Yes, I promise." You know.
And then I usually take this question into this, and maybe maybe it's something you guys talk about in your room too. The pre-match ritual, or how do you set yourself? How do you flip that switch when it's time to go out to wrestle? How do you go from nice guy to I'm going to beat the crap out of you guy?
Well, okay, so I always advise people that two things. I always advise people just if you're nervous, find someone to talk to. But something that always helped me was just watching the match in front of me, and because then you're, the worst thing you can do is watch the clock. I always find that like when you watch the clock, you're basically just watching a ticking clock until you go and walk into one of the most stressful situations you could possibly be in. It is something you signed up for, but God, wrestling matches are just so stressful. But so I always just say watch the match in front of you, so that way you can whatever. Um, but I tell kids that your match starts when you're in the hole. So like it starts when you're in the hole, and then your match ends 10 minutes after the third period ends. So you have to have that ritual of like, what am I gonna do to get into the attitude where I'm gonna go out and whatever. And not everyone thinks of wrestling the same way. It's so like if you're some people are out there like I'm gonna go rip your head off and destroy you, but then there's the Ben Askrens of the world that are just kind of loose, so loose that I'm like, if I'm your coach, I'm nervous that you're not taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. For me, I just like to be silent. I don't listen to any music. I don't do whatever. This is still the music question, isn't it?
Well, no, it can be. It's post. It's Howard. I mean, just it's a pre-match ritual question. What's
Yeah,
what's what's the thing?
I don't know. I just like
It's great.
I like
So
watch.
you were kind of hitting on a few of the things there. So a lot of younger, and like when I was young, it was always hard pounding music. Got to be warmed up. I'm pacing. I'm jumping. I'm getting ready. I talked to coaches, and I've just had a podcast not that long ago with a very high level coach, Emma Rando, who head women's coach at New York Athletic Club, or not New York Athletic RTC, or New York City
Mhm,
RTC. So she's coached the last every Olympics since 2016. You know,
mhm.
that's about as high level as I could get, And
Oh yeah,
she is like, I would listen to something that resets my vagus nerve, and I would be just kind of calm and ready to go out and just perform at my very best. And then I talked to a coach that's now. He was actually went to UNO. He was a All American for UNO, and he said when I was younger, it was always no, 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 heavy metal. And he said as I got ranked, then it became more zen, more assassin like and stuff because I really
yeah,
needed to focus in on what I had to do and not so much going out and being the underdog and being hyped up
yeah.
and stuff. So I think kind of
But
your idea of being silent and quiet and just
yeah,
focused.
yeah, and one thing that like, I guess I developed this when I was like a sixth grader and kept it until I graduated. But it's I have a pretty powerful imagination. Just pretending that you're in a movie walking in to face the final battle of whatever the movie is. I'm a big Star Wars nerd,
I
and I just think like if I'm facing down this opponent, it's the one versus one final battle of this movie or whatever. And it usually would give me a little bit of confidence that it's like, well, I'm here, whatever happened in the bracket to get me to this point happened for a reason. I belong here. I'm supposed to be on this match. Right now, he's a person just like me. He's just a name on a line that matches up with my name on a line. And that's what I belong in this match. And so, whatever, this can be my opponent that I'm going in a final battle to the death with, because there's nothing really special about them or me. We're just
Yep.
both, we matched.
Until the lightning bolts hit the mat as you're coming onto
Yeah.
the mat and the fireworks in the
Yeah.
background, all that stuff. Yeah, you do have a good imagination. It's no wonder you make film.
Yeah.
So you saw all that stuff already. I love shoes. It's like I don't know if I hung out with my mom too much. She had a closet full of shoes. I that's one of my things coaching, I always bought custom shoes when you were there, but I've taken it up a notch. For I've had all orange Nike Air Force Ones. Now I've gone more on the way of the girls union, and I have custom dunks that are black, or they're pink and black, and that's, people recognize that. And I don't do it to draw attention to myself. I do it so people know you can be a little goofy and a little different. It's okay. It's all right not to be normal. But if you're gonna buy some new wrestling shoes, that's actually, since you're still working out, you're gonna buy new running shoes. What company?
I have, oh geez, I just got some Adidas shoes for Christmas because I'm an adult now, so I get shoes for Christmas.
Yep.
Um, so I
And
got some
underwear.
Adidas that are, I haven't had Adidas shoes in a really long time, and so I forgot how comfortable they are. So I might say Adidas, but I usually have Asics. I
Okay.
believe they're Asics, and they're pretty good. I like those too. If we're going down wrestling shoes,
We
though,
That's
my
the
wife,
next question.
yeah.
That's the next one. What wrestling shoe are we gonna put on?
So normally I had I think it's Asics, the Cale Sanderson shoes
Yep.
from back in the day. Those were, I say back in the day, I was in high school, which is
Yep.
probably back in the day.
Yep.
But those, I got those my senior year. They were really good. I liked them a lot. But recently, because they're going to crap now because I'm old, um, my wife got me the Jordan Burroughs Rudis ones, the black
Yep.
and gold ones.
Yep.
And they're hard to put on. They're annoying to put on, but when you get them on, they're really nice. I actually think I wrestle better than I would have with the other ones.
Well,
Um,
I think you would. I mean, it's just like you get a new pair of shoes, you can run faster and jump higher. If you get a pair of
yeah,
Jordan Burroughs shoes, how can you
yeah.
not wrestle better if you
Like,
have Jordan
yeah,
Burroughs shoes on?
it's like it's his explosiveness is flowing through me now. But no,
Yes, yes,
it's
for sure it is.
I love them, and they look really cool. And I'm not a huge, I don't really care what stuff looks like, but they look really cool and they're super comfortable. The only critique is they're so hard to put on, but whatever,
Yeah,
that's not a
that's
big
something
deal.
you can live through. Um, what's your absolute if what's the absolute best favorite
Right.
food? What food are we gonna have? If let's say it's after match, you've just cut 23 pounds to make this weight in 2 days, what meal are you having? And not for healthy. I'm talking
And
what's your favorite
I have
meal?
to wrestle.
No, you don't have to wrestle. You just got to go. You just
Okay,
have to,
so
you get to take
not
a forfeit.
okay.
You're taking a forfeit.
Uh,
You're chowing down. What's your favorite
okay.
meal?
Steak. It's
Steak.
got to be steak.
What cut are we gonna do?
I like sirloins. I think they're just sirloin,
Man, you're easy.
medium rare. I'm really
Perfect.
simple.
At least you got some blood in there. We can't be, if you would have said well done, we'd have again had to rethink if we
You would
can be
have
friends or
immediately
not.
stopped
Yeah,
consuming me.
done. Delete. Delete. So we got that. I love cartoons. Are you a cartoon guy at all?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't grow up
So
in the golden age of cartoons, so I can't say like for sure I'm a cartoon guy.
but now, I mean, there's some really
Oh,
good cartoons on both sides, adult and kid side of the cartoon world.
mhm.
What's a cartoon that you really like?
So okay. Oh man. There's the old, when I was a kid, they were making that Star Wars, the Clone Wars show
Yes.
that I
Yes.
love. I really liked it growing up because of my favorite movies, where they take place in between some of my favorite movies. But I was actually watching recently the old Batman the animated series from like the 90s,
Uh-huh.
and that's a fun thing to revisit because I didn't realize how many like adult themes, like very mature themes, not inappropriate anyway, but
Yeah.
just mature themes go through that show. I was kind of just like, I can't, like, why would they go through the effort of putting something about like drug addiction in a kids show
Yeah.
that the kids don't pick up on? but it's about how like you can always come back from whatever happens. And I was kind of like, well, that's really inspiring. And I did not pick up on that when I was a 6 year old.
Yeah, but now you figured it out.
Right.
Are
Yes.
you watching any series right now? Are you watching any of the crazy series that are out there, any of the good ones? Is there something that it's like a go-to show for you?
Mm, um, right now, I don't, are you familiar with the show White Collar? It used to be on USA back in the day.
I'm not. I'm not, but
Okay.
I need a new show to watch, so maybe I'll pick
Okay,
this one
so
up.
White Collar is a show about a con man who is kind of a silver tongue kind of guy. He can typical con man, and he got
Yep.
convicted of bond forgery and then he went to jail, but he makes a deal with the FBI to be a criminal consultant for them. So he's serving his jail sentence helping the FBI. And he has a good dynamic between the main FBI agent and himself. And it's a really good show. And they put all these people, and he has kind of the inside. He understands the industry that he understands the criminals because he is a criminal, and it's a really good show. And so that's what I'm watching now. I'm trying to think what my favorite show would be. You know, Probably my favorite show is Band of Brothers.
Oh, yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max. It'll make
Hmm.
you really sad and not not it won't make you feel good necessarily, but it is such a good show.
I'm
And I actually
I've
started.
started with Landman. I don't know if you've seen that at all on Paramount. I think it's Paramount, and
What's
it's
that
it's
about?
oh well, it's the Texas or Texas oil fields, and it's just kind of life in this oil field town, and it's got Billy Bob Thornton in it, and it's
Mm.
it's it's pretty solid. It's kind of along I would say on the lines of Yellowstone a little
Yeah,
bit.
I was just about to ask. You seem like someone who's watched Yellowstone.
I have watched Yellowstone, yeah. Am I of the age of Yellowstone?
I think, yeah, like my dad, I think saw it on TV one time, and it was back when he would watch it when it came out every week. It was
Yep.
probably the last show of his life that he had, like, he would sit and wait for the episode to come out.
It's got to be. I have to be able to just binge it. I can't
Yeah.
do this waiting for episodes crap. So I'm gonna go back to two wrestling questions, and then we'll be
Okay.
done.
Okay.
So, freestyle or folk style?
A folk style,
Okay,
100%.
perfect.
I had big problems with freestyle for a long time. I thought the criteria where if you're losing and you tie it and you win, I thought that was so stupid. And I thought that you should just have overtime. But after watching a bunch of folk style matches, it kind of works itself out. Would you agree with that?
I don't mind that because I watched through the days of when they used to reach in and grab a ball, either red or blue, and then you started with a single leg. And
What?
yeah,
So that was
that was a criteria thing. So they would start, like in the drill, we start that way in practice, right? You get a leg
yeah.
between your legs and you
Mhm.
either take somebody down or they get if you broke the grip, you basically won and stuff. So
Yeah.
it was dumb. There was some really stupid rules they've used. So I don't mind it. I do like the idea. At least it's if it was two push outs and I scored the takedown, at least the takedown's better than the two push outs or step outs. I don't want to
Uh,
say push out, it's the step out
yes.
and stuff. So now
Yeah.
this I
But
actually I no go ahead.
I like folk style because I love the top and bottom work. And I think it's
Yeah.
even better now since they're kind of more strict with calling stalling.
Hmm.
Um, I think the 3 point takedown, I actually called you when they announced that the takedowns were 3 points. I called you and I was like, what is this going to do to the sport? We're throwing everything in the garbage can. I think it helped. I'm really glad they did that. And so yeah, I think folk style is my favorite, but I used to hate freestyle and now I don't mind it. I think girls
I
wrestling
didn't
in
do it
college.
enough.
Yeah, what?
I just didn't do it enough to understand it well.
Yeah. I like the 1 point push out. I love
Hmm.
that. I wish that folk style would adopt that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
So hey,
I wish there was two different events.
since you're coaching and you just said the push out and this, the 1 point. So you're and I'm sure you're coaching your kids properly. So if I'm wrestling you and you walk directly off the mat backwards and we go out of bounds, should there be a stall call on every time that happens? If you walk if you're not trying to work back in, should there be a stall call? Is it being called that way in
Wow.
Nebraska?
So I've got into it with a few referees on this,
I
where
have
our
I
person,
actually just got a warning.
yeah, our person pushes them out. One of our girls
Yep.
pushes the girl off straight off the mat, and they were like, "Well, you're just pushing her out, so it's stalling on you." And I was like, "What?
Well,
How?
it
We're
can
trying
be.
to,
It can be. It can be.
yeah,
The rule. So
it
I
can be."
actually so but the very first it's always got to go the first one if they walk directly off the mat and they weren't trying to work back in. If they're not circling back in and you're pushing and I don't care if you're pushing or not, but if you don't let them back in, you are stalling. But
Oh, if you don't let them back in.
if you don't let them back in, if they're attempting to come back in, you don't let them in, you're stalling. I had it 3 times in one match in a row. Not one call was made. And I'm like, I don't give a crap if it's my girl or the other. Call, make the damn call. you
Right.
know, and I
Yeah.
actually got a warning because I told the ref that. And so I was pretty proud. It was one of my first warnings I've ever gotten as a head coach. But no, I
Yeah.
was just seeing. So that
No,
leads
but
me to this last question, and I'll
no,
leave you
well,
alone because
I
we
agree with you. I think we're on the same page with this one.
okay, we're definitely. But I stole this actually from Mike Mall. He has a podcast also, and I started watching it just this last week. One of his questions, I absolutely love it. I'm going to give you a magic wand. You can change
Okay.
one thing. You can change one thing about the sport of wrestling. What's it going to be?
The sport of wrestling, folk style
You
wrestling.
does it the sport of wrestling? You can change one thing.
Okay. I mean, I talked earlier about the 1 point push out. I like that a lot. Um, but anything, I don't know. Could I get rid of illegal slams?
You can because you have a wand.
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I'm not a huge fan of broken necks, so I probably wouldn't say that. But yeah, I don't know. Um, See, if you asked me this like 2 years ago, I would have said add more weight classes to the Olympics. But I kind of like the idea of three different world champions in an Olympics bracket because they
That's
have
not a bad thing.
everyone has to consolidate. It kind of makes the
Hmm.
Olympics. Rita Laura winning with like six world champions in her
Yeah.
bracket.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. This is such a hard question. Um, I'd probably just say I'd say two things. I would say 1 point step out from neutral, um, only from neutral. And then I like to get rid of all Christmas break tournaments. All high school tournaments on Christmas break need to go. Um, the problem that I have with them is I remember back when I was in high school, we didn't have those, and there was such a seeming like there seemed to just be a sense of excitement coming back from break and being back in practice and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And you practice over Christmas break, obviously. In fact, some of our most diabolically hard practices were over Christmas break. But it's like coming back in the first competition back after break was kind of special, and you kind
Yep.
of take that away if you have practice or meets over Christmas break. You make people cut after they just had whatever New Year's or whatever. You're making
Yep.
people make weight, and by the time conference comes around, you're like, I'm done with it. I don't care anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Like everyone gets to a point every season where they don't care anymore unless it's districts because they just want they're worried about the postseason, that sort of thing, and that's totally natural. But you don't want to get to the point where you completely despise having to make weight because you didn't have any breaks over the entire year. And I think that if we got rid of our Christmas break practices, because it seems like it's more strong in the end of the year, everyone's kind of fed up and
Yep.
grouchy because they're just like, they don't have they felt like they haven't had a life in months, and
And they haven't.
it's they haven't, and like I always tell my kids, you can't eat food. You can't eat a lot of food, and that's where you get like 30% of your energy. So you need to sleep more. You can't be on your phones before bed, that sort of thing. And but a lot of high school kids, they literally work on homework after practice until 10:30. And so they can't be on their phone before bed. They don't have their time to scroll Insta Talk or whatever it is.
Yes.
And so they're not getting sleep and they're not eating, and they're getting their energy from the sun that doesn't exist when they're outside, because they get to school and it's dark and they leave when it's dark, and so they don't get any energy and they're just grouchy and whatever. And I think if they had that 2 weeks where they don't compete, they work their butts off, because those practices over Christmas break are so hard usually.
Yeah.
um, but they don't have to make weight. They can refuel and that sort of thing. I think the 2 pound allowance is beautiful and an amazing thing, but it's not enough. I don't think. I think I don't think 2 pounds cuts it. That 2 pounds goes away pretty quick. You realize that you're putting yourself on the ropes. It's just 2 pounds heavier than it used to be.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, that was a really long answer to say no Christmas break practices and at one point push out.
That's all right. That's all right. You'll have to actually, your first wish would be for one or for two more wishes because you'd have used one of your wishes on one of them. So,
You're right.
so technically you just screwed that up. But so the whole purpose of this, and so if someone actually gets to the end of the whole podcast, they're going to know that we're going to re-release Unsanctioned again,
Yes.
give it another kind of, and then we have two during the middle of this. We're going to have two interviews with some of the girls who are in Unsanctioned too. So that was the whole idea behind this, is get your thoughts on the whole unsanctioned thing and wrestling involved. And we end up having, I said it was going to be a nice short one, so we've been about an hour and a half,
Uh-oh.
hour and 20 minutes, whatever, doesn't matter, and stuff. But the whole, that we're gonna put unsanctioned out there because we're getting to that point now. A lot of the girls have no idea what it was like to have a boys, be in a boys' room and to have to be
Mhm.
on a boys' varsity team and go out and compete against the guys. So I thought it'd be a good time to do that, kind of hit that one more time. It'll finish up. It'll all be out available right before the state tournament. So if people are watching it, kind of maybe leads them up to the state tournament, something else to binge and stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm excited. You thought it was a good idea too. And if you got any final thoughts on Unsanctioned being released again, let's have them now and we'll finish this up.
Yeah, I guess have you a question for you. Have you seen it since have you watched it in the last year and a half or so?
I have not.
And I think I watched a year and a half ago, where I was kind of like, well, I want to revisit this. And it was a very strange kind of feeling, because I expected it to be not as good as I remembered it, because that's every video I make. And then a
Hmm.
year and a half later, 2 years later, it's not as good as I remember it, because I improve. I still think it's the best thing I've done in my life, but uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to watch it again, because I'll watch it on your platform, of course. But I'm excited it's on YouTube, because every time I want to watch it, going to Rockfin is kind of a pain, because I don't have a
It's a
there's
yeah, it's a
there's a
struggle.
few extra steps. There's a few extra steps than YouTube, and
Yep.
it's a good platform, but it's I don't have the app, and I forget my password or whatever, and but yeah, no, I'm really excited. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for some of the subjects that like Izzy or Tatum or Danny to go back and watch themselves, is because if my worst nightmare is going back and watching myself and the way my thought process and everything in high school.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
they're very different than I was in high school, and so they were at a much higher level of maturity, I would say. And
Well,
so it's going to be interesting to see what they think looking back,
yeah. And I
on
might
their.
do after we're all done, said and done with it all, that maybe I'll try to get us all together. We've talked about that and do a larger group. And I'll talk about how it is so many years later. We'll see if Jolene's in jail yet or not. I
Oh
think
my
that was what,
God.
we were always going to have a reunion show and Jolene would have to log in from jail, but no, she's not in jail. She's doing just fine. And stuff. So
I actually think she made that joke too in one of
I'm
the
sure she
interviews.
probably did. I'm sure she
But
probably
yeah,
did.
um, yeah, no, I'm excited to watch it again. And I do have to say, I was going to mention, I knew this project would be successful when it was coming out, and there were what two, maybe one or two episodes, and my sister, I was on the phone with my younger sister, who now is a senior,
Uh-huh.
um, and she said, like, what's Tatum gonna do next week? And she was a sophomore at the time.
Yep.
She's, I think, 1 year younger than the girls, Izzy and Tatum and Joe. But she was like interested. She looked up to the wrestlers and Unsanctioned and thought they were so cool.
Uh-huh.
I heavily believe that they were kind of the inspiration of why she decided to wrestle. Um, and that's when I knew. I was like, okay, because I didn't realize it at the time, but she's kind of the target audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
People that age, that sort of thing. Not the only audience, but I think probably the people who are going to appreciate it most. And so I knew that was kind of a special moment when I realized, like, okay, this is good, you know.
Yeah.
And I knew it was good because my younger brother didn't give a crap. So because he's a boy,
Yeah.
he's at the age where he's like, I don't care about any. I don't even think he has feelings right now. They'll come back, but
Yeah. At some
but
point in time. Yeah. Well,
no,
I
she
will
wasn't just
see. Yeah. I'm excited to
say that
see
again.
how I'm excited to see how it all will, how I'm excited to see the reaction 3 years later and stuff and see what people think about
Yeah,
it. So,
yeah. I'm sure that there's some parents out there who are like, so they're probably um, there's probably some parents who probably didn't think about the fact that girls wrestle boys. I'm sure we're at the
yeah.
point in girls wrestling that what they don't they kind of missed the part of the sport where it was a movement,
Yep.
and
Yep.
the movement has already achieved a big milestone, and now it's kind of just like, oh, girls wrestling's the thing, I guess, like, my daughter's going out for it, whatever.
Yep.
And they
Yeah.
don't realize stuff that everyone else did to get it to the point where it is now. And so I think that's kind of interesting. I think that'll be sort of a thing to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely be asking. So I'm gonna hit the stop button on this. Why don't you stay on for just a minute or two and we'll yap for a couple seconds.